are doing a series on what's in this cranium.
Baby, B squared.
B squared. Yo, okay. Just so everybody knows, we are. I think it's important that we do a B squared, brains and booty. That could be a fresh class, B. That could be brains and booty. And
brains and booty.
This excerpt is sponsored by Most Def and Miss Fat Booty. Actually, more inspired rather than sponsored. So bless up, everybody. Welcome back to the Brain Series.
Back.
What's up, B?
Doing good. We had a little pregame chat. My brain's all over the place right now, but I learned a lot about myself doing this research with this Dr. Amen guy. And I have come to the conclusion that I definitely have ADD, without a doubt. Not necessarily a bad thing. And it does have its benefits, which we can kind of talk about. But the more I'm reading into this, I was like, oh yeah, because I was a complete disaster in school, and for a lot of reasons. And even out on the outside of school, even in the workforce, like there's certain things like, my ADD it hinders me from a lot of things. So,
bruh, listen, you and I both, and just so people get understand, welcome to the podcast. This is the part two of the Brain Series. Part two, right? We do a lingo. Bless up, man. Bless up. And this series is based on a study that Brian shared that was in a podcast Brian's been following, a study by Dr. Amen about the brain. So first part, we talked about anatomy. Today, we're talking about what Brian went in on, ADD, and the other A, which is common, right? You're hearing a lot about Alzheimer's, right? So let's take the ADD part first. B, what was like, so because he went in on some stuff, like, because there's the ADD, right? And then there's the ADHD. I know that there's like a difference, there's a distinction. But what were some of the things that stuck out to you when he was talking about those two distinctions, man?
So from what I remember, the ADD was classified in, I think, 1981. And then in 1987, he went to ADHD. The government went into ADHD. I had let me see if I had the notes on here. Kind of kept that out today.
No problem. But so I remember you said something like it was like the hyperactivity. They shifted that piece in the late 80s, right? Because they didn't. It was like it really, when he was talking about it was almost as if that whole exchange was created to really up Ritalin, right? Which activates the cerebellum, prefrontal cortex, and that's the stuff that when we have to get stuff done, like that's kind of like our juju, isn't it though, man? Like our mojo.
He brought up a story. He brought up a story about that where he used to work with a writer. And anytime the writer wanted to get anything done, she would take Ritalin to keep her more organized.
Mm-hmm.
But the bad part about that, she's a writer. So she had she has all these things she's trying to juggle and be creative and have lateral thinking. Yeah. And the Ritalin, when she noticed when she was on the Ritalin, it would suppress her creativity. So she wasn't as good as a writer. So she's like, there's certain times like I need it to be organized, but I also know it hinders my creativity, so I won't take it when I'm writing. But if I need to, start doing my taxes, or I have to get this done, or or whatever it is, like other kind of tasks, like she's like, I'll take it, and it helps me out a lot too. I'm not a big fan of medication, but I do think that if it's hindering your lifestyle, you need to figure it out before you start. Because what basically he says, everything kind of goes back to trauma. Like early emotional trauma. So if you're not working on that, or you haven't figured out how to fix that trauma, or at least work with it so you can functional in society, that might be a good idea to just kind of go on that until you do accomplish that goal.
But I'm so happy you brought that up about the trauma piece. That junk got, when he was talking about that, I was like, oh, junk. When he was talking about the household and abusive and I gotta get better grades, and he talked about that hypervigilance, I was like, oh, junk, that's me, bro. like, or my perception of stuff in the past, right? And that has me super like always on the lookout for stuff. So when I heard that in his study, I was shocked to know that correlation, bro. I was like, oh,
yeah, it was interesting because when he scanned Steve Bartlett's brain, it came up almost like a diamond, right? Remember, it was like a peak up here, then it was down here, then it was down here, and Steve's like, oh, what's that diamond kind of shape? And he's like, that's a classic sign of ADD, in that you've had emotional trauma in the past. So it's like, then he started kind of going into it, and he's like, when you have ADD, you can be very motivated, you can be obsessed, you can be disciplined with things when you're really interested in things.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't interest you, it's hard for you to focus. And I'm like, that's me to a T. Like, if I would do a scan like that, mine would be a perfect diamond. But he goes, this diamond correlates with past emotional trauma. So he started talking about his past life, and I can, I don't want to talk about his past, but my life was like, my parents always fought. My dad was abusive. My mom worked a lot, was constantly stressed. She would lose her shit sometimes and flip out. So I felt like as a kid, like I was always kind of like walking on eggshells. And then I was going to school. I was getting bad grades. Even though I wasn't applying myself in school, I still felt ashamed because my grades were so bad and I felt bad. Just like got really insecure, and I just didn't have I wasn't interested in things. So it was hard for me. And I'm trying to compete with people in subjects that I didn't really give a shit about, except for trying to do minimal effort and trying to get a good grade so I can at least, not be that stupid kid in school, But from what I understand from what he was talking about, is this trains your emotional brain to become very hyperactive, because you're always on the watch for danger, and it gets programmed. What happens is you get programmed early with this danger piece in the back of your head. And even if there's no danger, you're constantly waiting for it to happen. And I can see how this creates negative thoughts, which, if we start, we can kind of get in the whole quantum physics and how your thoughts create your reality. So you see how people are in these crazy scenarios that people are in. It all, starts with how you're raised at home. I think in a lot of ways, it shapes your brain to give you that ADD.
Yeah, brother.
So I learned a lot about myself, man. What did you learn? What did you learn?
A lot, everything you just said, but man,
yeah, I saw you nodding a lot.
Because this was a place where I paused in the video, because I had to really think about this for a while, because it just explained a lot for me, especially that part of I have to do stuff I'm interested in. So I know myself, I can do this stuff I have to do, and to balance it out, I have to do, or I get to do things that I love, because now it's it's this harmony of okay, I know I gotta go work this 9 to 5 and stuff, and I'm doing this, so that's my path, that's my purpose. This is my paycheck and provision stuff, right? But him saying that, especially looking at my family history and just how we even the Jamaican culture, there is this hypervigilance. And even with the grade school, I remember I failed to apply myself. I was like, yo, man, as long as I get a C, I'm just yo, is it 3 o'clock yet?
That was like me. Yeah, teachers you got a D-. I'm like, I passed? All right, let's go.
Yes. Right. And it was, I had a lot of teachers that were like, yo, you're not applying yourself. But anyway, that's what came to me. It was that hypervigilance. And also for me, what also activated, what made me think about, is the people pleasing, right? Because we're hyper vigilant, and almost I'm scanning these people, where are their thoughts? So for me, the hyperactivity is a gift at times, and that was another thing I took away. These things that we identify, it can be a gift or it can be a curse. If I know how to work with it and I know what it is, then I could start to leverage that. If how would that was another thing when that woman was talking about if I know I need to be creative, I'm not gonna take this. So how to work with, so she knew how to work with herself So I looked at this with this brain study, like, yo, man, this is interesting, because now I'm even looking at it for work I do with men. And another thing that came out, because I want to make sure we get in this part too, is the Alzheimer's. When it because for some reason I always think about, I get nervous because I think the hyperactivity is going to lead to my brain like short circuiting, and I'm going to have Alzheimer's, in a realm, like I got the beautiful mind, and I'm like, I don't I'm somewhere else, right? But the thing that got me when he was talking about Alzheimer's, and there was a stat in here that I thought was super freaking cool. You and I talked about it. About the depression, because sometimes my hyperactivity can lead to depression because I start beating myself to a pulp. So when he started talking about depression doubles the chances of Alzheimer's in women and then quadruples in men, I was like, oh, junk, man. I was like, so he said, learning to kill the automatic negative thoughts. And I saw that ADHD or ADD and Alzheimer's really settling in, almost like they're in the same type of realm. But that was what I started getting from it. I was just like more alarmed at how the depression sets in and how it multiplies for us as men, man. It was interesting. Right?
Yeah, it was interesting to kind of piggyback off that too. So like women are more emotional. Their limbic brain is more active than men's brain. So they're more emotional and they think about suicide more than men, but men are more impulsive. So we commit suicide way more than women because we'll follow through, which I thought was interesting too.
Brother, that was interesting. Real quick, I saw when I was doing the stats on men's death, right, and like suicide statistics when I was doing this event for Men's Health. In the ages of 18, or in the age range of 18 to 26, accidents was the number 1 or 2 reason for death. The reason being because of what you just said.
Or men
are more, you know what I'm saying? So like the offing themselves, swallowing, ending their lives, that can sometimes be classified as an accident because they do stuff and I'm like, I'm a man too, man. That we do stuff that we don't even think about it sometimes, bro. Especially the younger
when I hear like these athletes and like, it's like, listen, man, I probably like seriously probably should have been dead like 4 or 5 times in my life doing stupid shit. And like I bring up this remember Henry Ruggs from the Raiders, that wide receiver?
Yeah.
He was in Vegas and he was going like some stupid like 100-something miles an hour in his Ferrari and wind up hitting that woman from behind and killing her because a car caught on fire, killed her dog, and now he's in jail for the rest of his life. So like I look at that story as a man done a lot of stupid shit in my life, and everyone's like, you see people on Facebook, oh, he should burn in hell, he should die forever, he should like rot in jail, whatever like that. Like, listen, I feel sorry for the victims, of course. But I also try to have empathy for both parties. And there's been so many times that like I've drove fast over 100 miles an hour doing dumb things. I've drove buzz before. I've done stupid things in my life. And all it takes is that one time. And you just don't realize it. I mean, now I'm 45 years old. I look back, I'm like, fucking hey, what was I thinking? Like, what I know, like what was I thinking? So like I understand like the situation that he was in, and he just wasn't thinking, and it just happens to be like, he went through this, horrible thing, and he's tragic, and he's going to probably spend most of his life in jail. But my point was like we become very impulsive as men. We're very impulsive. We have a tendency to do dumber things. I think.
Yeah, bro. It's like, yo,
yeah.
It's man, like as I'm thinking about this, I'm like thinking about that link between the suicide or like, ending their lives and the depression and and the potential of overthinking, right? With the trauma. Now it's like, it almost like it's a chain event of these things. And I know he was talking about even just like some of the things like mercury, and this coming back to the health portion of the things that we take in our body and how it impacts our brain health. Like I know we'll talk about that at a certain point in the series, but I thought what was really interesting is I appreciate Dr. Amen's research in how he's starting to give these clues and gems as to how we can better take care of ourselves and our brain. Because our brain really is a command center, man. Like how you're talking about, okay, last time we talked about the prefrontal cortex, the executive brain, and being able to like have our decision making, but then we're talking about the limbic system and emotions. Like all these combined and how they work together, man, play a big role in our health and well-being. So the release of different hormones, like when he was talking about bless up to the saunas, when he was talking about even, hey, listen, the sauna is lowers the incidences of Alzheimer's disease because it detoxes mercury. Bless up to the sauna. So I loved how he talked about these things that are happening, but then also some of the things that people can do to really course correct some things, bro. Was there some other stuff that you heard him say about, especially around the ADD and Alzheimer's, about like prevention or health or addressing it, anything like that came?
Yeah, because he said, remember mercury, there was a lot of mercury issues that lead to Alzheimer's and ADD issues.
Yeah.
So he's talking about saunas. Vitamin D is really powerful. This is it's not oregano oil. I use it every day. I keep forgetting the name of it. But I put it in cilantro oil. I take cilantro and I pull it in. That's a great heavy metal detox. I got that from Paul Chek, and I put a couple droppers in my shakes every day, and that's good for heavy metal detox. What's really good for detoxing the brain? Remember how he talks about the sleep quality? Yeah. So when your body sleeps, you have something in your brain. So everyone's heard of your lymphatic systems, like your drainage for getting toxins out of your body. But your brain has something called your lymphatic system. And it works with the fluid system in your brain. And what happens is when you're sleeping, but the problem is it only happens when you sleep. So when you fall asleep, it opens up and it kind of cleans everything out. It washes everything out. And it washes things out called like beta amyloid, which are clusters of protein that actually increase the risk of Alzheimer's. And these clusters, they build up during the day. So people that have like sleep apnea, they're at a risk of Alzheimer's, like, probably like, 5 or 6x as much as somebody that can sleep, because they're constantly waking up. That lymphatic system can't clean out those clusters that causes Alzheimer's down the road. So sleep quality is big. So when you get people like, oh, I can function on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, dude. Yeah, you can probably function, but you don't understand like the quality of the efficiency and the quality of your brain is just going over time. Yeah. It's impossible. It's impossible to keep it that long. So that was interesting. The sleep part was good. So learning how to get some good sleep hygiene. We have a couple podcasts out on that too, and I'm sure you could just YouTube a lot of things as well too to help you out with that.
Yeah, check our podcast out first though, because we had a couple on that. We had the original sleep episode, and then we Mike Licky.
Brought in your boy Mike.
Yeah, man, dude. Yeah. Like, so we went in on that. Listen, this was amp, man. I'm looking forward to our next series. I'm not even gonna tell them what it's about. You just gotta turn in. You gotta tune in. You gotta tune in, man. God damn it. Anyway, listen, what's up, everybody? B, we're coming back for another one. Let's take a quick break. Peace, everybody. Until the next part of the series, we're out of here. Peace.
Later.